Hello, Skillets. Welcome back to another episode of Cast Iron, the podcast all about rock and metal albums. My name is Lewis Clark, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend and colleague, Alan Williamson. Hello, Alan.
It's been a while.
Just a bit, but let's not talk about that, because we seem to always have to, apologise for how long we've been away. Sorry, just assume real life got in the way, right?
There was something I read online. The whole podcast industry is always in total turbulence, and I read some of that. Most podcasts only have one episode, and then they go away. So
that makes sense.
I'm certainly, so I like that Cast Iron is something that comes back when the world needs it, like Batman.
Exactly.
So one thing that has changed is that we are on YouTube now. First up, apology. This is a genuine apology, because I wrote a blog post about a year ago saying that we were on YouTube, and that wasn't true. And long story short, I tried to turn our MP3s into videos and upload them to YouTube manually, and that triggered a lot of YouTube's copyright censors, and the videos went away. Yep. And the first one that I tried was the Dio episode. That was a big mistake. Dio's music is a copyright DRM minefield. But anyway, we are now officially on YouTube. And the reason we are now on YouTube is because Google made it really easy to do a one-click import of a RSS feed. Cool. Now, apparently, a lot of people like to listen to podcasts on YouTube. Not me, but you do you. Most episodes from the archives are now available for your listening pleasure. Now, some of these are partially geo-blocked, as in you may not be able to see them in your country. They may be completely blocked and you won't be able to listen to them at all. And that is because of copyright claims from the music publishers. Now, I don't want to get into copyright law on a music podcast. That would be extremely boring. Essentially, there's a concept called fair use, and that fair use concept exists in most major jurisdictions. So certainly in Australia, where I am, there is a fair use doctrine. There's one in the United States, and there is one in the UK as well. But in order to actually use that on YouTube, you have to issue individual fair use claims against every individual piece of music. So if we have done a Dio episode with 10 Dio tracks, it would take you all day. There's no way to automate that. So the YouTube feed is there. I hope you enjoy it if you like it, but it really is a best efforts bonus. If there's no episodes on there in future, it's because of copyright strikes, and I will not be going to manually petition Google for it. You can always listen to new episodes in your podcast player of choice. That includes Spotify and Google and everywhere else I could get it. And you can also download episodes from castironshow.co.uk for your 90s MP3 player.
Absolutely. And I would recommend that you do that, because you always get the best quality version. And you get to visit our lovely website, which we've spent an awful lot of time, maintaining and making it look as nice as possible. So yes, this episode is a very unique and interesting one in that we've gamified it.
This is the Craig Wilson effect. For those of you who've listened to the Saint Anger episode, I have been channeling Craig, who loves spreadsheets when he's working on content for Split Screen. And this one, I developed a little spreadsheet to help us get some proper quantitative measures of how good this album is and who wins.
So yes, before we talk about that in a little bit more detail, I will introduce the album, because we are listening to The All-Star Sessions by Roadrunner United. Now then, so the All-Star Sessions by Roadrunner United, released in 2005. This is a bit of a unique one. It was made to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Roadrunner Records itself, and it is a compilation album of sorts, in that it is a compilation of different songs by different songwriters and artists, but they're all entirely brand new, and they were written and sort of developed by 4 team captains as such. So these team captains are as follows. We have Joey Jordison of Slipknot fame, Matt Hafey of Trivium, Dino Cazares of Fear Factory fame, and finally we have Rob Flynn of Machine Head fame. So yeah, it's a very, very unique record, and that's how we've decided to gamify it, in that we are going to rank and rate each team captain's contributions to this record. And that's where our little spreadsheet comes in handy. So we don't know how we've ranked and rated these songs. That's going to be a reveal for the end, and we're going to find out who our favourite team captain was. Alongside our traditional discussion of what our favourite song was and what our additional listening will be. But yeah, it's a very, very unique record. I really like this as a concept. I've always have. I really am quite gutted they never did it again, to be honest with you. But yeah, the idea is, what with it being on Roadrunner Records, each team captain could put together a lineup based on current or previous Roadrunner Records artists. They could, put together a supergroup for each song, essentially. And a lot of the songs have been written around specific vocalists in mind. But yeah, some of the songs are very much just a case of, right, well, I've got an opportunity to write a song here, but I'd love these people to play on it, so let's go for it. Yeah, it's a really, really unique record, one I'm a big fan of, and I wanted to ask you, Alan, did you have any familiarity with this record prior?
Absolutely none. So I was completely blank, and even some of the musicians, my first time experiencing them was watching the behind-the-scenes documentary of this, and as I was telling Lewis, I watched that, so it's currently... Not that this matters. It's currently 7:30 in Australia, and I got up at 6 a.m. and was making my coffee while watching this documentary on YouTube. So this is very fresh in my head. I obviously normally put in more prep than that, but this is very, very fresh for me, and I think. One of the interesting things about this is I don't think about record labels that much, and I particularly don't, and I was quite surprised by some of the artists that were on Roadrunner. I was like, wow, we're Dream Theater on Roadrunner for a while.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
were.
Yeah.
So that really surprised me, and it's only I think in the past couple of years, I'm not sure when it was, Apple Music has now added some record labels to the Apple Music directory, so you can now see what label produced it, and you click on it and it'll bring an aggregated page the way it would for an artist.
Okay.
So that is changing a little bit, but it's not something that unless I was looking up merch or something,
okay.
I wouldn't really, it's not something I tend to think about, so it's been really interesting for me to actually do that.
Oh, that's interesting, actually. I think of labels a lot, actually. So one of my first discoveries when I was first getting into heavy music was Visible Noise. They signed Bring Me the Horizon, Bullet for My Valentine. And I was a big champion of that label early on, and that really helped, me discover artists. And as things have gone on, I've often sort of like rallied behind specific labels, and that's how allowed me to discover lots of different artists that I wouldn't normally. A big one being COF Records in the UK, which sadly no longer exists, but I bought everything that label put out. And it was a really good way for me to discover hardcore punk, black metal, noise, like just loads of really interesting things. I basically started buying things off that record specifically because there was one artist I liked that, started the label. But yeah, it's always just been a good way of me to discover music. And Roadrunner were another one of, that were very much there prominently early in my first sort of listening of heavy music. They kind of have like three phases, which kind of all get represented on this record. Their first sort of phase when they first started is very much death metal. Their mid 80s to mid to late 80s oeuvre is very much death metal stuff. Things like Suffocation, Deicide, Cradle of Filth. So yeah, well, I mean, Cradle of Filth probably more black metal, but the heavier end of the spectrum. Then as we move into the 90s and the early 2000s, we get very much the second phase, which is obviously nu metal. And the big champions of that era are obviously Slipknot, and have very much been Roadrunner's cash cow for a very long time now. And there are lots of artists from that time: 36 Crazy Fists, Il Nino, Machine Head, obviously. Yeah, Machine Head obviously had a bit of a nu metal phase at one point on Roadrunner. But yeah, and then we kind of move into the last phase, which is very much sort of the new wave of American heavy metal. Things like metalcore, Killswitch Engage, are very much the champions of that era. Machine Head obviously would fit into that quite nicely as well. But yeah, they're an interesting label. They definitely have chased trends, I've got to say. But yeah, they definitely have a good, interesting history. And obviously it allowed them to draw from all these different artists for this really interesting 25th anniversary celebration record. You get a good showcasing of every single artist that's pretty kind of been on Roadrunner previously. Well, I say every single artist, but a nice wide variety of them at least.
A smattering.
Yes,
a smattering.
Absolutely. But yes, it is a really interesting record. The reason why I wanted Alan to have a little look at the making of video was just because it gives you a little bit of extra context, and it's nice to see how things came together and what sort of drama there was going on at the time. I think the interesting thing that I'd like to pick up from that documentary was how sort of adverse Rob Flynn was to doing it. Like, you can tell he kind of reluctantly agrees to doing this.
There are quite a few people. It's Glenn Benton from Deicide.
Yeah,
he says, the Roadrunner kept hounding me until I did it in the studio, so here I am. Right, goodbye.
But yeah, it is interesting because, like, I don't know what it is with Rob in particular, but I feel like he thinks like I think maybe he's been asked to do this sort of thing in the past and it's not come to fruition, and he very much sort of like, well, if the songs are good, I'll just use them for Machine Head records, which is fair, right? Like, he wrote them.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting time for a lot of these bands. So we talked about the 4-team captains. You've got Rob Flynn from Machine Head. They were pretty well established by this point. You've got Dino Cazares from Fear Factory, who had been they came before some of the bands and artists there. They're very much inspiration. And then you've got Joey Jordison. So at this point, we're 2005. So Slipknot have already released Iowa by this point. And possibly Volume 3.
I think Volume 3 is also out. Yes, yeah. So, or if it isn't out, it's out this year.
Yeah. So they're a well-established band. But then you've got Matt Heafy, and this was the year that Trivium released Ascendancy, which is their first major label album. And Matt Heafy was born the same year as me. So it's 2005. Wow.
I worked it out. He was 19 years old.
Yeah, he would have been 19. Yeah. So he is very, very young, and that will be interesting as we get to talk about the song-by-song breakdowns.
Absolutely.
The fact that he gave him a captaincy, I don't know if that's a marketing thing, because Trivium were in the, pun intended, ascendancy. And Trivium, I mean, we've never done a Trivium episode, but who knows what we'll cover in the future. And they were really pushed as the new Metallica, I assume, by Roadrunner with their first couple of major releases, which were Ascendancy, followed by the Crusade. And if you want to hear an album that sounds like shameless Metallica worship, it's definitely the Crusade by Trivium.
Yeah.
But that is I thought that was fascinating that they put him on, and I'm really glad that you shared a documentary with me. Yeah, because watching that, you get a bit more context as to the label head talks about people he knew could just fart out metal songs. Absolutely. to get perhaps a little bit workmanlike in terms of let's just get it done. Let's get these songs bashed
that
out.
A&R guy is such a prick. He does not come across well in that.
So nobody comes out of this looking particularly good, because it's the early 2000s, and we were talking in the pre-show about everyone's making jokes about, suck my balls and I fucked your mom and all this. And one of the sound engineers is a wheelchair user, and they seem to pick on him, and he picks on himself quite a bit. And it's very South Park kind of humor.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very early.
Little edgelordy for sure.
It's a bit edgelordy. So the documentary's fun. It's a bit cringe, but I'm not going to judge anyone based on what they were back then. I actually have a story I've got an unverified story about Trivium.
Okay.
So, I need to try and remember this correctly. I'm not going to attribute it to anyone directly. So one time Trivium were playing in Belfast. And I think it would have been either touring like Ascendancy or the Crusade. Okay. And they were playing this venue in Belfast, and one of my brother's friends, who's in a metal band themselves, and being very ambiguous here because I don't want to give away names, he goes into the bathroom at the venue during this Trivium show, and Corey, the guitarist from Trivium, the lead guitarist. He's also in the urinals. So so my friend, he sort of said, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" Just says hello. That's all. And apparently Corey turned to him and said, "Do you know who I am?"
Oh, never a good look.
And I remember talking years later to my brother and saying about, I've been listening to the new Trivium. I was like, "Oh, Trivium, they're dicks." And that one urinal encounter with Corey from Trivium had just soured half of my friend group in Belfast. But I don't think they'd be like that now. But I can certainly that documentary that I watched this morning gave me new context in why everyone was a knob in the early 2000s. And Trivium went from being, a Florida Battle of the Bands high school band to being the biggest metal band in the world in the space of a few
absolutely.
years. And given that I'm a dickhead now, and I'm 38, I can only imagine what kind of a dickhead I would be at 19 had I had that fame thrust upon me. Yeah. So, but it's a good story. If you're an up and coming metal guitarist and who says, "All right, you should say hello." Not, "Do you know who I am?" No, I don't.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're that young and you've been, like, your career has been skyrocketed that quickly, I think your ego will go absolutely insane, right? So it's a little bit justified. Like, Matt Heafy is on top of the world right now. Like, he has a lot to prove with this record, and like, he comes out swinging. And yeah, I think we should probably just jump in now, I guess. Like, this is a long old record. We've got, basically each of the team captains writes 4 songs each, apart from Joey, who writes 5. And then there's one sort of outlier. We have a song by Josh Silver of Typo Negative and Michael Ackerfeld of Opeth, which is just a little outlier sort of thing. But yeah, that's kind of the setup here. So let's jump in with the first song then, which is The Dagger, and this is a Rob Flynn composed joint.
And I feel this all too slow, and I've been here for so long, and I feel so empty as you walk away. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?
It's a Rob Flynn joint, yeah. So who's on this track? This round to get the Wikipedia up. So we've got Rob Flynn from Machine Head on the rhythm guitar and vocals.
Yep.
Who's a very distinct sound. We'll hear a lot of the and you see him doing it on the documentary. He's also doing the rhythm guitar, and you'll hear the Machine Head. I don't know what the noise is, but this kind of strange harmonic. It's almost like a pinch harmonic sound. I don't know enough about the technicalities of playing guitar, but they have this kind of boom, boom, bing noise that happens a lot of Machine Head songs.
I know what you
mean. We've got a Howard Jones of Killswitch Engage on the vocals. We've got Jeff Waters. He quickly clicks on the Wikipedia article.
He's from Annihilator. Yeah.
He does appear in the documentary as well.
Yeah.
And he rips through the solo in that one. You've got Jordan Whelan from Still Remains, which is a really, really interesting to see them there. You've got Wolbers on the bass guitar, and he's a guitarist in Fear Factory. Is that right?
He is the bassist in Fear Factory as well. Yes.
I thought they said he was a guitarist in Fear Factory.
Oh, okay. I thought he was bassist.
That's confused me. And we've got Anders Herrick on the drums. This is one of the songs that's featured quite heavily early in the documentary.
I think it is the first that Rob Flynn composed for this.
So Wolbers was a guitarist on Fear Factory as well as the bassist. So they got him in, I think, because they knew that he could absolutely shred the bass as well as playing the guitar.
Exactly.
So this one, what an interesting start. I think it's a pretty strong opener. Like, anything with Howard Jones in the vocals is a fun time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Interesting for Howard Jones because you do see him in the documentary, but he doesn't say anything. And this, because this is the mid-2000s, this would have been right after, this would have been the Daylight Dies period, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
So I think at this stage, Howard probably was, like, he's talked quite a lot about mental health issues in the past, and he probably had a lot of that anxiety and stuff going on. He certainly doesn't come across as being a particularly extroverted chap.
Yeah.
So whenever I first listened to this, I tried to listen to these without the liner notes to see, who's responsible for this.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to tell, but the riffs on this are 100% Machine Head.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, this is the one that Rob says in the documentary. It's like, well, if nothing comes of this, then at least I've got a cool Machine Head song that I can use again, sort of thing. And he's right. Like, this is a very, very Machine Heady groove metal track. I think it gets a little bit nu metal when it's just the bass and the drums in the verses. That sounds a little, like it just reminds me of that early 2000s nu metal era. It's not like cringy or anything like that, but like it's just there's a definite sort of like stompiness to it.
Machine Head were quite nu metal-y this period. And that's what's Machine Head are one of these bands that oscillates between really good albums and absolutely abysmal stuff.
Yeah.
And this is them coming out of their first abysmal period with there's a notorious album called Supercharger, which is riding that nu metal popularity wave. So this is around the time that they released Through the Ashes of Empire, and they were coming into their more recognizable sound of albums like The Blackening. Ding! I was cast iron episode on that. It was cast iron episodes and everything now. It's a really useful resource for talking to friends. But just before they did Through the Ashes of Empire, The Blackening, Onto the Locust, and some of their I don't know what you call it, their more career highlight stuff, where they became a little bit more proggy and I think had a more recognizable Machine Head sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one, what's interesting about this is I'm trying to think of metal supergroups. There, and basically every track of this album is a metal supergroup song.
Yeah.
And often, whenever I'm trying to think of any supergroups I've listened to. There's some recently, like Active Denial, which was a melodic death metal supergroup. You get about prog musicians quite a lot. Mike Portnoy's obviously been in about 200 different bands. Those those metal supergroup tracks often lack that refinement and cohesiveness of a more established band, and I think that'll be a recurring theme here because these are almost like jam band sessions where these musicians are trying to find their groove, and you get a lot of that in the documentary, right? Where they're trying to understand how each other works, and you have in this one you've got Anders Herrick, he has actually done music theory.
Yeah.
And he's saying, all right, you do 7 measures and then we'll kick in. Whereas Rob Flynn's going, we'll do the ba-da-da-da, then we'll do the ba-da-da-da. and they're trying to communicate with each other. And all Rob Flynn can do is sing what he's trying to convey because he hasn't got that shared language of music theory, which is really interesting. Like, I think with this one, it's a good start. I think where it suffers a bit is that verse, bridge, chorus flows a little bit disjointed. I like the different elements. It doesn't flow like a good Machine Head song would. And I think that's particularly apparent in the breakdown at the end. That feels a little bit out of place.
That time signature change in particular, that again gets a kind of nu metal-y again. No, definitely. Sorry. The time signature change happens in the choruses, doesn't it? Like the way it flicks between the verses and the choruses is very sort of stilted and a bit strange. Yeah, for sure. However, I really like this song. Actually, I'm a big fan of this opener. I think it's got a lot of energy. I think it's got a lot of groove. I love the guitar solo. I'm a big fan of the dagger. Actually, I think this is a really good start to the record. Yes, it's not as fully formed as probably a Machine Head song would be. You can tell it's kind of ideas thrown together. But I think they work, personally. I'm a big fan of it. I think it comes together.
No,
nice.
I enjoyed this. Are we going to talk about scoring now? We're going to save it right to the end and do a rundown. It might be better to do. We can give a. So the way, I don't know, did you follow my scoring suggestions?
I did, yeah. So we can talk about scoring as we go because I'm not going to keep track of it mentally.
We'll just shout a number and then we'll get to the scores at the end. So the scoring system it's a score out of 3.
Yep.
1 is wank. 2 is fine, and 3 is awesome. So I give this one a 2.
Okay, I gave this one a 3.
All right, so let's move on then. That's all we need to analyze for now. It's and this is where it's gonna make the what's your favorite song a little bit easier this time. So we might need to do top 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
So the next track is The Enemy. And this is a Dino track.
This is a Dina Kazara's track, yes. I think this has a nice deceptive little acoustic intro, which then sort of just blows up into this really cool new wave of American heavy metal riff. Absolutely love the riff on this one. Like, I think the overall song is like a kind of fusion of Chimera, and then you get like the Fear Factory sound in the breakdown and the solo section. Ooh, it's a good one. I like this a lot.
I did not like this one.
Oh,
This
really?
one- yeah, this one to me. So what are the things that I think particularly objectionable about a lot of this album?
Okay.
Is the lyrics. Now, I know that's not fair because
Okay.
it's metal. The lyrics are bad at the best of times.
And they were probably
This one
thrown
to
together
me-
very quickly. Yeah.
This one to me, it felt like a bunch of metal cliches from a Battle of the Bands EP.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and I think it's technically proficient in some places, but I found the lyrics so bad that it really sucked me in. That I just don't you know who the fuck I am? I'm the enemy. You know, I'm trying to couch my words here by saying this probably is not fair, but I found this one a little bit of a punish to listen to, which surprised me because I really like Fear Factory. Like, I'm a big fan of Dino's work normally, but this one did not click with me.
I'm
at all.
very
Could not-
surprised,
Could
I've got
not
to
get
say.
into it.
Fair enough. I don't know. Musically, again, I was just really vibing with it. I like the sound of Mark Hunter from Chimera's voice. He's got a really good scream. I really like that sort of. I don't know. Is it tremolo pick? The riff. It's just really, really good. Listen,
I see this is the problem. I don't know if it's tremolo picking or not. I don't. I'm trying to think back to it. When did we talk about this? We really haven't recorded in a while. I'm nodding along with you, and I've had to remind myself people can't hear you when you nod. So we need a video episode on YouTube.
But yeah, it's a nice quick pick riff. Let's put it that way. Like, it's just I think it brings the whole thing together. It doesn't feel as stilted as the previous song, where there's like that very obvious shift in time signature between the verses and the choruses. This feels like it's a little bit more of a cohesive piece.
That's true.
I don't know. I had a good time with it. And sometimes I just want something daft and silly. Like, it's like you can tell like this was very much a case of like, you know, these guys have all been thrown together very quickly, and they're all here to make metal stuff. So it's just like, well, you know, if I've got an afternoon to write a load of lyrics, then I suppose it has to be the stupid, like, I'm the dangerous person. Fear me.
Fuck you, Dad. You can't tell me to clean my room anymore. I am the enemy. I mean, there is one big caveat to everything I say in this episode, which is, if you put me in a room and said, could you write a metal song in 30 minutes, it would be 1,000 times worse than anything in this album.
Fair.
So I'm being critical with love, with the intention that they're having a crack, but there definitely is a bit of a garage band slapped together for the Battle of Bands feeling to some of these things. And that's okay. I don't think it has to be perfect. It was always going to be a weird album, right? Given the sheer diversity of artists. So just because I've said I didn't like the song doesn't mean I don't think the musicians are good. End of caveat. Let's get on with the slagging. So what score did you give this one?
I gave this one another 3.
Oh my god! Did you go for max points? Three's all right. I give this a 1. So this is my
wow!
first,
God,
didn't like this at all. And sorry. I don't know why I'm apologising.
you don't have to apologise to me. You know what you like. It's all good.
I don't have to clean my room. I don't have to clean my room, Dad. You don't have to tell me what to do.
I don't know. It's just, I think for me as well, this album hits a very specific time and place, and you know, I am probably just, you know, a few years into discovering heavy music for the first time. Like the first sort of heavy albums I got were in like 2000. I went to my first gig in like December 2001. You know, so like this is still early days for me, and I'm just like chewing stuff up. And obviously, at this point in time as well, Roadrunner having bands like Slipknot on, which were probably, you know, some of the heaviest bands that we were all championing at that point in time. It's like I will chew this stuff up, you know, like, and I think that's why this record has like a bit of a nostalgic place for me, because it's in that era. It's very, very much in that era. Like the new wave of American heavy metal is breaking. We're getting that early metalcore stuff, but we're just off the back of the new metal phase, and it's, you know, it's just lots of a big amalgamation of all that stuff, and it's like a nice little celebration of it. But so that's I don't know. It just does it for me sometimes. I know it's silly sometimes, but yeah, there's
okay.
there's a lot of good fun to be had on this record.
I am very happy to walk with you down memory lane.
Good stuff. All right, track 3 then. We've got Annihilation by the Hands of God.
This is the first Joey Jordison track.
It is indeed. This is the first Joey track, and this is right. So, I want to say Joey in particular on this record. It does feel like he is writing songs for specific vocalists in mind. This is Joey going, right, I want to do a death metal song. I want Glenn from Deicide to sing on it, and that is essentially what he comes up with. I think that's a more successful sort of take that the team captains have on this record. I do feel like Dino and Rob in particular are trying to write Fear Factory songs or Machine Head songs, and they're just kind of putting super groups together to play them. Whereas Joey is very much tailoring his songs to a specific artist, which I think works really well. This is pure death metal worship, you know? And Glenn Benton, bless him, one of the most ridiculous people in metal. Don't know if you know much about Glenn Benton, but he does have an upside down cross, like branded into his forehead. So he is an extreme individual.
I mean, this one is basically a Cannibal Corpse track. It's written by Rob Barrett from Cannibal Corpse. It is a pretty straight up death metal song, and I do agree with you that I think Joey's tracks are easily the most diverse on this album.
Yeah.
I think he's really cutting across the panoply of different genres that Roadrunner have published. This is a straight up death metal track. It's basically Cannibal Corpse. You've got everything you'd expect from traditional death metal. So you've got guttural vocals, you've got crunchy riffs, blast beat central. This one is a bit long. I think 5 minutes 30 is a bit long for
sure.
a death metal track, but a lot of fun, and the solo absolutely rips.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Loads of double bass drumming as well in this. Like, it's very decapitated in sound. I wouldn't say it was very Deicide, but yeah, it's got that sort of modern death metal sound to it. And Joey being Joey gets to drum like an absolute beast throughout the entire thing. It's an incredibly impressive song. I think one of the real early highlights. It's another 3, I'm afraid.
Okay, this one for me is a 2, but a high 2.
Okay.
And I should clarify the scores by saying that after I got through this, I checked all of my sums to see if there was any captain could have won if I'd been a little more generous about a track one way or another. No, it was pretty locked in.
Mine
was
was
a solid
the same.
2, but 2's good.
Very
2's
clear.
a thumbs up. 2's a thumbs up, and 3 is 2 thumbs way up.
Okay, fair enough. Again, like, this album is fun for me. Like, it's very, you can clearly tell it was written very quickly, and, you know, some things work better than others. But I do feel like Joey's approach.
This is a good track.
No, I think Joey's approach definitely for, like, writing a song for a specific artist in mind is a lot more successful. A good alternative, which I haven't put in as my additional listening, but I just want to mention it, is there is an album by Dave Grohl called Probot, and that does a very similar thing in that, like, the songs are clearly written for specific artists in mind, and then Grohl goes and gets that artist to go and sing on it. That, I think that is generally a more successful way to approach a supergroup record. And we do kind of get it in the next song as well, which is In the Fire.
This is the first Hafey track.
It is indeed. It is indeed. So yeah, Matt Hafey showing that he loves metal and all types of metal by going, what if I wrote a King Diamond song and then get King Diamond to sing on it?
So this one for me, after the first 3 tracks, I thought, yeah, this is fine, but I'm not really seeing the appeal. And I heard this and I thought, finally, a track that embraces the inherent silliness of this project. We've had three really self-serious songs, with Dagger and the Enemy and God's Gonna Kill You, and this one is just a bit of absolute ridiculousness about witches getting burned. You've got great riffs from the Trivium boys. King Diamond is having a blast here, and he appears on the... I was disappointed you don't get to see him in the studio recording the lyrics.
Yeah,
I got the impression a lot of those lyrics were
Yeah.
recorded separately to the music. But he did say, I'd be happy to sing this to anyone. And in
amazing.
shows, I think that there's not a lot to dislike here. This is a really early highlight for me. This is just so much fun.
Oh, it is. It's a really, really fun song. I think King Diamond is utilised incredibly well here. I don't know if you've listened to a lot of King Diamond, but I think untethered, he is a little bit of a parody of himself sometimes. So if you've ever listened to Abigail, it is hilarious. Like, it is so silly. It does sound like Dr. Roxo from Metalocalypse, which is obviously based on him, but it is so over the top. Like, that man needed to be reined in ever so slightly, and Matt totally gets that. Like, it's okay. Like, yeah, we'll use the high pitched falsetto for the right moments in this song, but not all of it. Like, he gives it the guts as well, which I really like. I'm a big fan of Confess Witch.
It's I think this is where the lyrics are silly, kind of fun, and they're tongue in cheek. They're quite knowing.
Absolutely.
One of the things this album reveals to me is my lack of knowledge of early 2000s metal. I've never listened to Chimera or Il Nino or half of these bands, and maybe that's why I didn't have the sheer nostalgia factor.
Okay.
Because whenever I first got into metal, it was quite a lot of classic sort of Maiden and Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, a lot of melodic death metal, like In Flames and that kind of stuff. I would have listened to a lot of Killswitch, which was on the Roadrunner label. But so a lot of these bands are quite new to me. And I haven't listened to really any King Diamond or Merciful Fate. I've got a lot of homework to listen to after this, but this certainly made me want to listen to a lot of King Diamond.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a very sort of Judas Priest-esque sound, I guess, but with like these cool sort of mellow death riffs in it. Oh, it's just a real banger, this one. And again, it's another 3 from me.
This was a 3 from me. It's my first 3.
Yes, get in. Lovely. Love to hear it. Oh, mate, yeah, In the Fire, a real highlight early on. Okay, next up we move on to track 5, which is unfortunately not the end of the record, but it is called The End.
The end of the EP.
Everyone will be washed away, drowning in the hell that we made. I cannot believe that our end is so near. Everyone will be washed away, drowning in the hell that we made. I cannot believe that our end is so near.
So this is another Dino Cazares track. This is Nu Metal by Numbers. This was the single from this album, believe it or not. There is a music video for this. I always felt it's a really weird choice as well, because I don't think it's very representative of the record at all, to be honest.
Yeah, so Jess had heard this one. We did the usual refresher in the car drive, and I had not heard this song before the podcast, but Jess was like, "Oh yeah, I remember this one." Whenever it came on in the car, and I think it did get a fair amount of airplay back in the day.
Yes, it is.
This is a kind of double captain, because you've got Dino's actually the captain for this, but Matt Hafey's on the vocals.
Yes.
I think it's a perfectly competent pop metal song. It does have that early Trivium vibe in some ways.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. It's not amazing. I think the lyrics are tragically bad.
Yeah.
It really, this is really getting into pop metal cliche territory.
Yes. Yes.
It's not clear what it's the end of everything. Like, are we talking about an ecological disaster here, or is it the end of someone's relationship or something cheesy like that? I don't know. I think this one's fine. It probably wouldn't. I can see why it was the lead single, because they were probably trying to market it off the Trivium hype and the pop metal, new metal hype. I think if you'd leaded with Annihilation by the Hands of God as a single, it probably wouldn't have shifted as many copies, right? So there's a cynical marketing angle to this. But it's a real outlier on the album.
Yeah, I just think even as like the, pop metal, new metal track that you could get radio play, I think there are better versions of that on this record that could have serviced this a lot more successfully. Yeah, I think I also think that Matt isn't very well serviced by the music. Like he's hitting this sort of mid-range. He doesn't really get to scream on this. It's all his sung vocals. But I know he's a much better vocalist than that, and it just doesn't feel like he gets to really flex his chops very well as a vocalist on this.
It's interesting you would say that, because that's true. This is very early in the Matt day, and Matt has come a long way in terms of his singing ability, and it's really hard for us to go back to an album from 2005 that was thrown together in a strange way when this guy was 19 compared to his singing on current albums. But his singing has taken a long while to get there, and he's one of those classic vocalists like Jesse Leach, who features on a later track, who didn't have a particularly well refined shouting style and blew out his vocal cords.
Yep.
So he was very early in the day here. I think if he re-recorded this now, the vocals would sound way better.
Okay.
But that's just a passage of time thing. Like, the guy's 19. He's doing better than me. He's doing much better than I could have done.
And at least he doesn't rap, I guess.
Away. I'm trying to think back to without pausing this podcast to go and listen to Ascendancy. I think you're right. I think it's not getting the most out of him, because the whole thing's clean, and Matt's quite a good vocalist who can switch between clean and growling really well, and he also can growl in tune. He's not a one note growler.
No. Vocals with heat, I think that's called. No, totally. Unfortunately, I do not like this song. I gave it a 1.
Ooh, so I give it a 2. I think it's fine.
Wow, a little bit more generous than I was on this one. Yeah. Well, there you go.
The system works.
Yeah, definitely.
Evens out. We're not going to do it again. We're not going to do this for every album. It's just a bit of fun.
Oh, no. Of course, it was just a bit of fun because of the structure of it. Totally.
It's a bit cringe, but it's. I don't think it's that bad.
No, fair enough. Right, track 6, Tired and Lonely.
Tired, lonely.
Yeah, tired and lonely.
Not tired and lonely. Tired and lonely. It's another Joey Jordison track, and it's a perfectly competent rock song.
Yeah,
right?
So this is Joey doing Life of Agony, essentially. So he's got, at the time, Keith Caputo, but now Mina Caputo on vocals. And yeah, it's a sort of bluesy hard rock track, very much in the Life of Agony vein. I have unfortunately never really clicked with Life of Agony. I've never quite found something that worked for me with their discography. I've heard singles and things, and it's just never been like, I don't know if this makes me want to buy their records. So unfortunately, this also didn't work for me. It's the chorus is fairly catchy, but it's not like one of these songs that I'm absolutely clamoring to put on again. Like this feels like a skipper to me. So. Yeah, it just didn't really come together, unfortunately. And I really, when I listen to Joey Jordison, I don't really want this sort of thing. Like I'm fully like I fully support someone wanting to flex their their songwriting skills and do something a little bit different. And this is very different for Joey Jordison for sure. And like I say, I do think it's a little bit more successful when the songs are tailored towards specific vocalists and things like that. And he's clearly done that again here, but it's just not a band that I've ever really enjoyed. So it just didn't work for me in that regard.
Yeah, like I think that's fair. Joey does have a lot of diverse projects, and he has AC Slade from the Murder Dolls on here, and I've never really listened to the Murder Dolls because I think I heard a single or two and was like, nah, this isn't my kind of thing. But it's certainly more of that poppy vibe. Like I think it's fine. It's a fairly generic rock song. Again, it's got that battle of the bands. This isn't particularly interesting. Like I think the lyrics are awful again, but in this case, that's the genre.
Yeah,
they're all pretty bad. So
that's
it's,
hard rock for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's pretty skippable. This
is kind of representative of another sort of arm of Roadrunner. Roadrunner also was signed Nickelback, and and Theory of a Dead Man, and I'm trying to think of some other rock bands there.
Theory of a Dead Man are so bad.
Blackstone Cherry were also on Roadrunner. This very much represents that side of Roadrunner, and so I can understand why they've done it, but it's just not for me. Like I've never really been into that sort of like arena blues hard rock thing. It's unfortunately another one from me.
Ooh, I give this one a 2, and I was being very generous that it was fine. Okay. So I guess my criteria are like if I actively found it repellent, it got a 1. I got a 2 if it didn't make me bristle, and I got a 3 if I got my head banging.
Yeah, for me it was like it was a 3 if I was having a good time. It was a 2 if I was fine with it. I just wasn't like super enthralled by it. And then if I was going to skip it, it was a 1. That was my
if you're feeling tired and lonely, it was a 1.
Exactly.
The song's
there
called,
you go.
But it's so interesting. You got Jim Root from Slipknot on there as well, but it's pretty bland stuff.
Yeah, well, Jim was obviously in Stone Sour as well, so I guess he can do rock, right? So
which is
makes
kind of caffeine-free diet Slipknot.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
That was what you get from Joey, and that reminds me of the documentary, The Substance Abuse. I've had 8 espressos and I'm tweaking.
Oh God,
I think he says at one point.
He's tweaking the entire bit. God,
it's amazing. If you watch the documentary, which I probably would recommend to everyone listening to this, is if you go and look. I looked at everyone's Wikipedia pages first of what they look like now, after a further 20 years of hard rocking. And they go from looking fairly youthful with their piercings and stuff to looking like leather bags that have been abused, soaked in alcohol and Xanax. Yeah,
unfortunately, in some of the artists' cases, they're not even viewable anymore.
Joey Jordison's not here. Yeah,
it's a real shame. Right, track 7. Then we are moving into Independent Voice of the Voiceless. Which is another Rob Flynn joint. Right. There is no way that I can be remotely unbiased to this track. Mainly because I am the biggest Max Cavalera fan in the world. And I love this song. I absolutely adore this song. It's got Max Cavalera on it. It's silly and overblown and groovy. And that's exactly what I want from Max Cavalera. And yeah, Rob Flynn basically makes a Max Cavalera song. Really fun groove metal track, this one. I don't know how you felt about it though, Alan.
Didn't like this one at all.
Oh,
didn't like it
there
at
we
all.
go.
I don't know. I feel like I just maybe it's not my favorite genre. I just found it a little bit generic, and I think really here we have reached nadir with the lyrics. Where it really did feel like it was written on the back of a napkin. For me, it just churned on, and I found it really boring. And
fair enough.
Could not get into it. So this was a 1 for me, and I thought, I'm going to struggle to get through this album. This was a punish. So I did not enjoy this at all. And like I'm not I've seen Sepultura. I think I saw them supporting Creator at one point in Dublin, but it wasn't with Max on the
Of
vocals.
course,
But I
yeah,
have
yeah.
not listened to a lot of Sepultura or Soulfly or any of that. So it's
Okay. Yeah,
it's
well, there's
probably
that's...
I think I probably don't have the musical education to really get the most out of this one.
Okay,
So I
fair
bounced
enough.
off it, but it more than happy to say it's ignorance on my part. Not that the song's legitimately bad.
You don't have
but
to
I just,
apologize for my
yeah,
complete
but I just
fandom
did not.
for
But I,
what's
but I
Max
did
Cavalera.
not. Could not get into this one.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Look, yeah. Again, one of those things. It's like, again, I can't. It's bias, unfortunately, on my part. Like, I love that man's voice, and he's very silly, and he continues to just churn out metal records at a rate of knots that I can't fathom how someone at his age can continue to do. He's currently in like 3 bands. He's always
He
doing
comes
a side
across
project.
pretty well in the
Yeah.
documentary. Comes across
I
as
mean,
a rather nice chap, or at least
extremely
pretty
friendly
smart,
individual.
pretty smart. Yeah.
Extremely friendly bloke, and clearly just loves heavy music. His journey into new metal comes from his I'm trying to remember the relation. I think it's his grandson, or like his stepson. I can't remember how it is, but it's a gentleman that unfortunately passed away quite young, and a lot of like his introduction to sort of, you know, new metal, Slipknot, Korn, and things like that came through this person into Max's life, and he kind of used that influence on a lot of the later Sepultura recordings that he's on. Roots in particular has a lot of new metal stuff on it, and then that sort of carries through into the early Soulfly records as well. But as Soulfly's career continues, very much that sort of groove and thrash comes back in from Sepultura into his sound, and it becomes more like a traditional metal band again, instead of that sort of new metal groovy sound. But yeah, this is very much in that era of Soulfly where new metal and groove metal is kind of influencing the experience quite a lot. And it's just, again, very nostalgic. Soulfly were an artist that I clung on to very early on. They released an album on Roadrunner called 3, which has Seek and Strike on it, which is another song with terrible lyrics, but it's just fun and stupid, and I have a good time with it. And yeah, it really clung on to me, and I stuck with them since, to be honest with you. So yeah,
I'm trying not to judge the lyrics too harshly, unless they are, one, so bad that they detract from the song, or two, so funny and silly that they stand out. I'm trying not to, because if we're doing a full lyrical analysis, you know, we'd be here all day. Yeah. I have remembered one Max Cavalera project that I like, which is I really like Killer Be Killed.
Of course, yeah, no, incredible supergroup.
And that's a good example of a supergroup, and that's certainly more my kind of thing, especially because it's got Troy Sanders from Mastodon on it.
Of course, yeah, no, for sure. Max's thing, unfortunately, with vocals is he's obsessed with words that end in ation. Extermination, determination. So yeah, it's just his.
That's very much. There is one other guy who does that. Who's of course David Draiman from Disturbed. The domination, your annihilation, the end of time.
Yeah. Very lazy, but it's his kind of signature, unfortunately.
Well, it rhymes. He's Brazilian, right?
Yeah, no, English is not his first language.
His English is better than my Portuguese.
That's fair. Right, okay, track 8 then. It's time for Dawn of a Golden Age.
All right, quick question. Do you like Danny Filth?
Yes, he's a guilty pleasure though.
Okay. So my answer is no. I do not like Danny Filth, and I have never enjoyed Cradle of Filth. There you go. That's all you need to know about this one. Do you like Cradle of Filth? If so, you like this. If you don't, I've got bad news for you. Because this song has Danny Filth on the vocals. This one is again,
I find it a lot of fun,
mixed.
to be honest with you.
Yeah, like I think the guitars are all right. I think everything about this is all right. But I just find Danny Filth's vocals are impossible to ignore. I suggest it's like it's like someone is overdubbing the devil from The Exorcist over all the tracks. And there's one thing I like about Danny's vocal delivery. There is the first good lyric on this album when he says "songs in the key of death sharpened," which is a really good pun. That is very clever, but that is really all I liked about this, and it's a shame because it's got Sean Malone from Cynic on the bass.
Oh yes,
and it's got Mike Smith in the drums. So it's a musically fantastic performance, but I really do not like Danny Filth's vocal delivery. Don't care about him as a person or whatever, but I really cannot stand that kind of singing. I've never been able to get into Cradle of Filth ever. I personally dread two bands that we might ever do in Cast Iron. One would be Cradle of Filth. The second would be Bring Me the Horizon.
Okay.
So I just could not get into this purely because of Danny Filth, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I find his ridiculous vocals kind of funny and entertaining in that regard. They're very dramatic and overblown. They create a lot of drama, which this track sort of like is built on. It kind of is on the cusp of being like a symphonic black metal song. It's very much like Matt Hafey trying to do black metal, essentially. Again, flexing his chops.
Which I think he does. I think he does pretty successfully. I think if you had, Insane on the vocals, this would be my. I could definitely get more into this.
Yeah.
And Matt has since gone on to do he's got a black metal project, Ibaraki, I think it's called.
Yes.
So he has done his own black metal stuff. But so I think it fits the bill of a symphonic black metal song that sounds like Cradle of Filth.
Yeah.
But that is not the kind of thing I would like to listen to outside the podcast episode.
I'd also like to highlight one of the bits from the documentary for this one as well, because Matt Smith's section where he's talking about his drumming and
Mike Smith,
sorry, I do apologize. Mike Smith from Suffocation, and he has probably one of the most consistent blast beats I think of any drummer. Like, he gets to kind of demo it in the making of, and it's so it's like a machine. It's incredible, like how like loud it is and consistent. You even watch Joey do a blast beat in one of the sections in this, and you can see he gets a bit feathery as the blast beat continues, whereas Mike is just a beast. And you can really hear it on this. Like, the drumming on this track in particular is absolutely godly. Yeah, it's another 3 for me, unfortunately. I'm just having a good time with this song.
I love the inconsistency of the scoring. That to me just makes it extra fun.
Totally.
This one for me was a easy one, unfortunately. But I do think with another vocalist it would have been a solid 2.
A solid 2. There you go.
But for me, it's a solid. It could have been a solid 2. As it stands, it's a number 2. So it's a 1.
A soft 2.
I didn't know we were meant to use the Bristol stool scale to rate these songs.
Oh dear. Right, let's move on. Track 9, The Rich Man.
Oh man, this is so mid-2000s metal. It's got the classic metal cliche of that guy talking into a megaphone / muffled radio announcement. You'll hear a lot on early Kill Switch. This is the voice of the voiceless. 2,000 soldiers were killed today in a battle of northwestern Iraq. That kind of, oh my god, this is...
Cringy.
And I'm guessing this one's about the Iraq War. because it's about people dying in the desert for a rich man. I went to the cinema yesterday to see Dune Part 1. I imagine it's not about the Frank Herbert sci-fi classic, and it's actually about the Iraq War.
I somewhat don't think Corey Taylor's as well read as that, unfortunately. So, yeah. I don't know why, but I've never vibed with Corey Taylor when he does rock music. I just think that man should always be screaming his lungs out over the most chaotic metal music ever conceived, and this ain't that, I'm afraid. It sounds like a Stone Sour B-side. It goes on for absolutely ages. I think Rob Flynn was trying to do his take on Slipknot's Gently, almost. That's what it kind of feels like. But it just doesn't come off very well. It's more like a dirgy nu metal track, which I'd rather never hear again, to be honest with you. I
think we're in a solid agreement here. Look, it's definitely a straight up mix of Corey Taylor's slower Slipknot work, but also, as you say, his solo stuff, which is not great.
Yeah,
and you get the classic Machine Head. I don't know what it is, if it's like a pick scrape they're doing, but you hear that in the chorus.
Yep.
So long and self-indulgent. It's 7 minutes long. And I was really fading at this point, and we're only halfway through. And I thought, how am I going to make it through the rest of this? Really, really bad. Really, really bad. Yeah, it's. I think it's not just the worst of Corey Taylor, it's the worst of Rob Flynn as well. It's like a bad Machine Head track mixed with a bad Corey Taylor track.
Yeah. Speaking of being the worst of Corey Taylor, this is also during his knackered voice era, which it also features on Slipknot Volume 3, which is basically down to him boozing too much, essentially. Like, he's knackered his voice at this point. So yeah, it's not good. It's a real naff song, unfortunately. It is a 1 from me.
It's also a 1 from me.
There we go.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Finally a consensus has been reached. The system works.
But will we reach a consensus on No Way Out? Because I think this one is a very, very interesting little track.
Children carry out your voice, it really matters. Carry on about your fight and who is shattered. The blood is strewn around, and they will kick a man when he's down. Children carry out your voice, it really matters. We are never
So this is Joey Jordison again, and he is doing Glassjaw this time, basically. And we've got Daryl Palumbo of Glassjaw on vocals at 2. So, yeah. How did you feel about this one?
The song rules.
Oh, ho, ho.
This song to me sounds like it's been recorded by an actual band. I think Daryl Palumbo's vocals are really good. This to me reminds me of something that could have been one of those EA Tracks albums, like Burnout 3 or SSX. And this gave me so much hope for the album after some really turgid tracks. So I really, really enjoyed this one.
Oh, really good, really good. See, now, I've never really properly explored Glassjaw, unfortunately. But I've always liked what I have heard. I've heard, singles and individual tracks on compilations and things like that. And I feel like I'd really like them because I'm a big At the Drive-In fan. I just don't know why I've never really explored them properly.
I haven't either, but I've heard their first album is, I've talked a bit about lyrics, and I've heard that the first Glassjaw album is like so bad that Daryl Palumbo has had to apologize for it.
Oh,
interesting. Because it is so misogynist.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it's probably advisory warning on that one. But it's not a band I've explored that much. But this track really made me want to.
Yeah. No, for sure. Decent bit of post-hardcore. Like I know that Daryl Palumbo's voice is not for everyone, but I had a decent time with this. I think it's and again, really impressive how flexible Joey's writing style is. Like, considering
he's playing the bass
done.
on this too. He's also playing the bass as well as the drums, Joey.
Yeah, it's very left of field for him, for sure. Like, I didn't love it enough to go for a 3, but I did give it a 2. Just because I had a good time with it. It was just not quite hitting me in the way I like. As we've discovered throughout this, I like the silly, overblown, groovy shit. And this is not that at all, but I still think it's a very good representation of what Glassjaw are like, from an artist that is obviously not a member of Glassjaw. So yeah. A very interesting entry on the album, this one.
This has one of the weirdest contributors, which is Junkie XL.
Yeah, Tom Holkenborg, yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny I said EA Tracks because I'm just scrolling down his Wikipedia page and he did the soundtrack for SSX Blur. So maybe he's got a little bit of a contribution to it. But all I know about Junkie XL is that Elvis cover. He did the really famous Elvis remix of A Little Less Conversation.
A Little Less Conversation. That's Junkie XL.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I knew that.
Him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I know him obviously quite heavily as a composer of movie scores now.
Yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't use Junkie XL as his name anymore. He uses his actual name, which is Tom Holkenborg. I suppose the closest thing to home with him is that he composed the soundtracks to the Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
Did he?
Yes, he did. So
Wow.
yeah, there you go.
So this one, did you give this one a 2?
I did, yes.
This is a 3. This is a 3 from me.
Hey,
I was like,
look at
finally getting some energy back.
There we go. But was your energy sapped by Baptized in the Redemption?
So this is it's another Dino track.
It is. Yes.
I think this is probably the most Fear Factory-esque track in the album. You've talked about how Dino writes Fear Factory tracks, so he certainly has here. So this one for me, let's get Paul Gray, R.I.P. on the bass. So this one, I think it really has that grinding industrial groove to it that I'd like about Fear Factory. It's also quite short and sweet. I thought this was really fun.
I really like this track as well. We've obviously got Des Fafara on vocals of Devil Driver and Cold Chamber fame. I feel like this is very Devil Driver, actually. Like, I don't know if that's an artist you've explored too much, but they are, very much groove metal, new wave of American heavy metal sound. And again, like, props to Dino for aping their style pretty much perfectly with this. Like, it's a really fun groove metal track. I really... Dez's vocal style will always get a smile out of me. It's the way he pronunciates the syllables very clearly, and they're quite robotic in sound. I will die. It's just, I don't know. It's just something about it. It's very distinctive.
Dalek metal.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, he does that in Devil Driver an awful lot as well. But yeah, no, I had a really good time with Baptized in the Redemption. It's again, another fun song, pretty silly, pretty, one note to it, but it's just, it's formed very well. The whole piece feels like it's cohesive. It comes together as a nice song. Nice. Describing groove metal as nice. Very, very odd, but yeah. I had a lot of fun with this. It's another 3 from me.
It's a 3 from me too.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed this one. I think after the Rich Man, I just felt, mother of God, how am I going to get through this? The first time I listened to this, I was mowing the lawn. And it's quite good because you're really locked in to you do full attention to the music. So I had my AirPods on. They've got a massive pair of earmuffs over the top of it, so it's locked in. And then these tracks come on, and then I'm starting to mow a bit more aggressively and get my groove back. Yeah.
I don't think the next track would have done much for your groove then, would it?
No, it didn't do much for my groove. So the next one's Roads.
Soaring hope is reeling in my head. I can't remember this, but it must be what I miss. Suddenly I find I'm standing still, staring at the ground, waiting for your sound.
And this is the Michael Ackerfeld and Josh Silver one. Now, this disclaimer here, I really love Opeth, and this is just Michael Ackerfeld singing over a keyboard for 2 minutes. I wish they'd given him longer than 2 minutes. I think given that Opeth were kind of at the peak of their powers by this point, because this is the year of Ghost Reveries. So this is before Opeth slid into Italian prog rock worship. In the late 20-aughts. I think it's a really really beautiful interlude. It's a little too short to be memorable, but objectively, I think it's probably the best song in the album in terms of just songwriting. It's just barely there. It's barely. It's really in and out. It feels a little bit slight, but I think in terms of just sheer niceness and how would you write a good song, this is probably the closest to it. You get this look in your face like I'm about to shit on you here.
Unfortunately, I do not like this song. Yeah. I don't know. It just feels like a real waste of Michael Lagerfeld, to be honest with you. Like, I you can sing. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't know. Like, I kind of want more from him. You know, like Michael can sing and scream and do all this other stuff. You know, and it's just a moody acoustic track with him singing on it, and it's just like, do you know? It reminded me too much of Bother by Stone Sour, which is never a good sign. So yeah, I gave it a 1, I'm afraid.
Wow.
Yeah.
I give that one a 3. I think where Ackerfeld is wasted is they don't have him playing the guitar.
Yeah, for sure. They should have fleshed this idea out into something a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree that it's a waste of his talents, but I do still think it's a really nice song. Just a little bit short. 3's being super generous, but it doesn't even matter because they don't get an official team captain score.
Yeah, that's a shame, isn't it? But yeah, it's strange how this one sort of. I don't know how this one made it on there, and I don't know what sort of like circumstance means that this happened. Was it very much a case of like, all right, we need an interlude, and all the other songs have been recorded? Do we need to get someone in quickly to do something? It's never really explained in the documentary.
I suspect that he just was one of those people who said he didn't have time for it.
Yeah,
and because he
had something
not
at least.
Based in the United States, he didn't get that. Now, here's an interesting, since we're doing the interlude part of the album, this is the Roadrunner. Let me read to you from the Roadrunner Wikipedia page under the section Criticism.
Okay.
Since the 1990s, Roadrunner Records has been criticized by several of its past alumni over its record contracts, business practices, and management and promotion of its releases. Artists who have criticized Roadrunner include Megadeth, Slipknot, Obituary, Opeth, Chimera, Vision of Disorder, and Sepultura. And in particular, critics are Glassjaw members Daryl Palumbo and Justin Beck. They openly advise people not to buy their first full length so as not to give the label money. Have repeatedly told fans it chose to illegally download the record. Palumbo has said, Roadrunner is a joke. It's not even a real label. It has the power to be one of the superpowers in the heavy music industry. It is the scourge of the music industry. Don't ever buy anything from them. They suck. Now, they did clarify a little more and said they didn't put the band on enough tours. We never toured half as much as we wanted to. They're a miserable corporation that does not bend for their bands, doesn't give their bands anything. They had 2 cash cows, Slipknot and Nickelback, and every other project they had rode backseat to those bands. And then the second that the new Slipknot record came out and didn't go quadruple platinum in the first few hours it was released, they turned their backs on Slipknot. It just wants instant gratification where it sells its units. That's a joke. You can't run a major corporation with that as your business strategy.
Yeah, I'd heard that spiel before as well, and yeah, it does not paint them in a good light, does it? Yeah.
And Slipknot have often said they haven't really made a lot of money. From off Roadrunner, and Opeth started their own label because they had a really bad time with Roadrunner. So it is interesting. There's that context. So it's I thought that was good to say. You know that Roadrunner have taken a lot of they've caught a lot of shit from quite some of these artists.
For sure.
That have featured on this album. So it may be that Ackerfeld didn't want to get involved beyond 2 minutes of vocals because he didn't really like working with Roadrunner. Yeah,
no, absolutely. But conversely, we've got people like Matt Hafey, who have spent his entire career on Roadrunner to this very day.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a strange one, isn't it? Like again, it could just be sour grapes from certain artists because they didn't get treated the way they wanted to be. It's but at the same time, those are pretty damning words. Like it's maybe a bit of both there going on. But it gives
everyone's
you
probably right. Everyone's probably right, and
right.
Trivium are still one of the biggest metal bands in the world.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so they may be getting really good treatment.
Yeah, no, that is fair. That is fair. Right, speaking of Matt Heafy, it's time for track 13, which was written by him. It is Blood and Flames. Yeah.
So this one's good. This one's got Jesse Leach on it.
It does.
But it's Jesse Leach at the bottom of his powers. And we were talking a bit about people who have blown out their vocal cords, and Jesse Leach is one of them who had serious vocal issues. I think, is that why he left Killswitch?
That was what I was always told, but whether or not that is the story, I think there was a part
story,
of him,
but certainly he had vocal issues.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, if you didn't know it was Jesse Leach, I don't think this song would clue you in that it was him singing, because it's so different to his vocal style in Killswitch.
This one, to me, is probably the biggest disappointment on the album, because I think it's a groovy track. It's got nice melodies. It's fun overall. It doesn't lean too hard into the metal cliches. It doesn't feel completely meat-headed. But I really don't think Jesse's at his best. And as it stands, it is good. I think if he was at his full powers and they re-recorded it today, it would probably be incredible. But the vocal delivery is really not Jesse at his best, and that is such a shame.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to flex his vocal muscles a little bit. I'd say this was definitely an attempt to do something different, and maybe it was just one of those things that didn't work out quite well. But it definitely feels like there has been some sort of attempt to go, okay, well, I can do more than just scream. Let's try something a little bit more clean, and there is some screaming in this. Nearer the end of the track, sort of the middle 8 onwards, it does feel like a Killswitch Engage song is trying to emerge from it. But I find it's a little too late, unfortunately, for me. I don't know. The whole thing feels like a big waste of talent, to be honest with you. I don't really come to Matt Heafy for dirgy blues rock, and I don't really come to Jesse Leach for him singing super clean, really. I kind of want him to be crooning and then screaming over a really kick-ass metalcore song, and this doesn't really have that sort of energy. Yeah, it's a strange one. I rated this one a 1, unfortunately.
Ooh, so I give this one a 2.
Okay, you're a little bit more generous than I was.
Yeah, still enjoyed it, but not what it could have been, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, totally. Okay, this back half, man. Track 14 is Constitution Down, which is a Joey Jordison joint.
Dialect is failing by the minute. It's possessed the Chelsea Constitution down. Allocate the unsound. Constitution down.
Right, so this starts with like this really crazy sort of fretboard tapping, and I'm just like, oh, okay, where are we going with this? Unfortunately, it's a very disappointing smokescreen for a song that is a pretty uneventful groove metal track. I feel like this one is really lacking like a really like killer riff or a chorus that just to set it off. It's just one of these tracks that sort of just gets lost in the mix at the back half of this record. I really didn't like this one, unfortunately. I don't know how you felt about it.
I think it's okay. It's a fairly interesting groovy metal track. What is interesting about this, is probably more noteworthy than the song itself, is that it's basically the same group that did Annihilation by the Hands of God.
Wow, okay.
It's pretty much exactly the same people with a different vocalist.
Yeah. Wow, that's
And I'm scrolling up and down the Wikipedia page trying to check
Yeah.
the work here, rather than opening 2 tabs because I'm lazy. But you've got Joey Jordison, Rob Barrett, Matt DeFries, and Steve DiGiorgio. Steve DiGiorgio, he really shows how good he is on that making of video.
Yeah.
Because you can tell that he is not just the bassist who's been in everything like Megadeth and Testament.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can tell he's a session bassist because he just comes in, absolutely rips, and then leaves.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's probably the unsung hero of a lot of these tracks.
Yeah.
But this is this is probably the only time that you get to see him. I think it's the only time you get to see him people appearing in other stuff. Although now I'm like, shit, should I have checked that before I made that statement? I'm gonna commit and say yes, it is. No takey backies. I think it's all right. It's it's fine. Not offensively bad, not particularly noteworthy. I think you're right that the start makes it seems more interesting than it actually is. And it gets into that Constitution. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh, you could lose your mind if somebody printed all the lyrics from this into a book and told you to find the hidden meaning. It'd be like House of Leaves type stuff. You'd be.
No, there's no hidden
so
meaning.
weird.
We had to write a load of metal songs very quickly. That's the hidden meaning.
Yeah, bash them out, fart them out, lads. Number 4 in the Bristol Stoke scale. Not too soft, not too hard. Get them out.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is a number 1 for me as well.
It's a solid number 2. Solid number 2 for me. I think it's neither objectionable nor exceptional.
Fair enough. I can agree with that opinion as well. But yeah, it was a skipper for me, so that's why I got the 1. Right. Something different. Track 15. I Don't Want to Be a Superhero.
They came from the sky and they came from the sea. They came from the inside of the television screen. Babies and bastards breeding as one. The fate from this doom that quit, I'm done. Some kind of darkness come creep over me. I'm what legal make us a seizure to free. So we can never be this free. No, I don't wanna be a superhero. Never really cared about society. I don't wanna be a superhero. I don't care, so don't call me.
So this is Matt Heafy. Matt Heafy. I keep automatically trying.
Yeah,
to
I've been pronouncing it. For context, we have been pronouncing it Heafy for about 10 years.
Yeah,
and only
same.
now, about 5 minutes before the start of this, Lewis said to me, "Oh, by the way, it's pronounced Heafy. Goodbye." Like, what? So we're having to rewire our brains in real time here. It's Matt Heafy.
Yeah. And yeah, he's doing a punk rock track here, which is kind of interesting. So,
with
Misfits were signed to Roadrunner for a brief amount of time, which means that Michael Graves, who was the second vocalist for Misfits, gets to make an appearance here. Now, unfortunately, his appearance on this does taint the song for me somewhat because Michael Graves is a piece of shit. If you go on his Wikipedia entry, you'll notice that there is a political views section. Guess what sort of way he swings on the political spectrum. But yeah, so that unfortunately...
I think if you got through 20 episodes of this podcast, plus all of the supporting material on social media, and you didn't have an idea of our political leanings.
Yeah, I just find it odd. Like, well, how do you join a punk rock band and end up right wing? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But
well, was he on American Psycho or was that Danzig?
That's Michael Graves, American Psycho. Yeah.
There you go. He's the real American Psycho.
And he just. But
this is so. It's so conflicting because the guy certainly is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I do quite enjoy his vocal performances with the Misfits, and I
Yes,
have a lot
same.
of
Exactly.
I have a lot of nostalgia for like Famous
Yep.
Monsters and all those albums. I swear that this one has Ben from Billy Talent on the backing vocals.
Oh yeah.
You can and if you can particularly hear it on it's on the chorus when you hear somebody singing "Never really cared about society," which is such a Ben from Billy Talent way of phrasing it, and the evidence is that I believe Billy Talent were signed to Roadrunner at this period in time. I think he has secretly snuck in to do the backing vocals, and it's not credited.
I don't remember Billy Talent ever being signed to Roadrunner, so I don't know how that. I don't know what happened there.
I'm gonna look it up before I'm just talking shit here. Hold on.
But
No, Bill Talent. That's somebody else. Let's go. but it really does sound. It sounds too close to him.
I get you.
Yeah, they were on Roadrunner. Let me see.
Maybe that was a US distribution thing, because I don't think any of the Billy Talent records I've got have Roadrunner on the spines.
Yeah. So let's see.
It's
Billy
all
Talent Billy Talent 1 and 2 were on Atlantic.
Yeah, I've got those.
So let's have a little look here.
Is it 3?
Let's see.
So I've got 3 in Dead Silence.
Yes, it was. Billy Talent 3 was on Roadrunner in Warner Music Canada.
I did not know that. It's just Warner Music Canada for the UK release. That's interesting.
There is a little.
Doesn't have a Roadrunner thing on it, but yeah. Oh.
See
Well, there you go. I never knew that.
So so I wonder if they were pals with the Roadrunner guys and they got involved.
Fair enough.
I don't remember Graves ever singing the word society like that. Certainly do remember Ben from Billy Talent singing it like that.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Speaking of left wing bands, what a contrast.
Yeah,
Billy Talent versus the Proud Boys.
Yeah, God, Jesus Christ.
Anyway, I think this one, like Graves politics aside, I think this is a total blast. I think this is so fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. So, of course, it's super catchy. It's over and done with before it become annoying. It's just a really simple and effective punk rock song. I really like the little solo. It's a lot of fun. I can't hate it, but at the same time, my feelings towards Michael Graves means I can't love it. So, unfortunately, I gave this one a 2.
Okay, this is an easy 3 for me.
Yeah. I think under different circumstances, I might agree with you, but yeah, unfortunately, Michael Graves can get in the sea. So yeah. Right. Track 16. It's another Rob Flynn one, and we have got Army of the Sun.
I think we've been very harsh on Rob Flynn.
You have.
I have. Yeah. Because I think but I think this is actually a good one.
I think this is an excellent song, in fact.
Yeah, it's got good classic mid-2000s metal vibes, got a nice chorus, flows well, fun midsection. I'm not familiar with the vocalist at all.
Nope, neither am I. But
Tim Williams.
I love this song, I've got to say.
But he does a great job, yeah.
Yeah, no, so Army of the Sun then, I feel this should have been the single. I think this would have been a better hit. I think this feels like some sort of lost 36 Crazy Fists or American Head Charge banger that would have been in rotation on Kerrang like a lot. It's just a really effective, hooky nu metal track. It's just really perfectly formed. Like every part of the song feel like it services the greater whole. Absolutely no fat on it whatsoever. It's a real good pop metal track. I really, really like Army of the Sun. It's kind of the song I think of when I think of this album, I've got to say. It comes together so much better than like a lot of the other Rob Flynn tracks on this. But as I have already kind of hinted at, I kind of like the Rob Flynn stuff on this album, which I was surprised by. But yeah, it's a 3. It's so good. I have a lot of time for this song.
It's a 3 for me as well.
Yes, get in. Love to agree.
I don't know if you agree with this because I haven't got your scores in front of me, but I think the back half of this is much stronger than the first half. Yeah,
agreed completely.
And I think that's part of the reason why you got halfway through and, oh my God, this is torture. How am I going to get through this? This is worse than that Korn episode. But actually, the back half is so much better that I'd gone through a maelstrom of emotions in this one, thinking, I don't like this at all. To actually, there's a lot of good stuff in here. You just have to get through some of the more questionable tracks. Yeah, for sure. Okay then, track 70. I don't know how you pronounce this. Control.
No mass control.
No mass control.
My infliction, one dimension, dispossession.
Don't ask me. I'm from Northern Ireland. I can't pronounce English.
But yeah, this is another Dino Cazares track. You can hear Fear Factory all over the verses in this one.
Yeah. As well as having the Fear Factory very technical, fast picking.
Yes.
You also, and I don't even, who's the drummer in this? The drumming in this to me sounds very Fear Factory. Dave McLean. Who's Dave McLean?
Dave McLean's from Machine Head, my boy.
Machine Head, because I wonder if they're using triggered drums. Fear Factory are kind of famous for using
absolutely
heavily triggered drums, so it sounds like a robot's playing it. You get it, and I think this is Christian Machado, who's the vocalist for El Nino. Not listened to much El Nino at all. I thought his vocals are excellent in this one.
That is the big thing with Christian. I have listened to some El Nino, and while they're not for me, because it is very much a nu metal band of the era, he is a fantastic vocalist. He has a really, really powerful scream. He's a great just singer as well. And he flip-flops between the two in this song as well. It's very much I'd say it feels like an Il Nino song in the choruses, but when it's not doing the choruses, it becomes a Fear Factory song. It's
quite a combo.
Yeah,
this could have been a single too, I think.
Yeah, totally.
This is enough catchiness, but it's also heavy enough that it could have been a good single.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of the better Dino songs on this in particular. I feel like I would have liked him to be doing more Fear Factory style stuff through this album, whereas it kind of feels like he kind of gets dumped with the nu metal sound an awful lot throughout a lot of his songs on this record. I think this is a great little track. Like I guess I would have liked it to sound more consistently Fear Factory throughout. I think it gets a bit cheesy in the choruses, but I don't think it ruins the song. It just takes the edge off a little bit. I gave this one a 2. I did enjoy this track, but it didn't have that push to be an absolute all-timer for me.
This one for me is a 3. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
Really, yeah, just very, very enjoyable. Bit of cheese, bit of fun. I think again, just overall, it sounds less like a jam band.
Yeah,
it sounds tighter. It sounds like a real song from a real band that have been working together for a while. Very, very, very good. Dino's brought it home. Yeah,
there we go. Right, we've reached the end of the record. This is track 18. This is Enemy of the State, and this is a Joey Jordison one. So once again, as I've said with the Joey stuff, it feels like Joey has kind of crafted a song with an artist in mind, this being Peter Steele of Typo Negative, and it very much is, Joey showing that he can condense a Typo Negative song down to 5 minutes. I feel like if Typo Negative written this song, it would probably be twice as long. But yeah, it's a goth rock sort of doomy track. I think Joey does a pretty good job at condensing their style down, I've got to say. I think the music is pretty good in this. Again, shows his flexibility. I think it's very impressive that this is Joey Jordison, the drummer of Slipknot, doing Typo Negative. Unfortunately, I think Peter Steele lets the side down ever so slightly, in that it sounds like they had him for an hour and he just mumbled into a mic for a bit, and then Joey had to kind of craft something around that. He has a chorus and some mumbly spoken word stuff, which I think is all in Latin. And
okay, yeah, it doesn't show you the lyrics on the.
I had a little Google and I could only find stuff in Latin, so yeah, I think that's what's going on there. But yeah, it's you get 2 run-throughs of the chorus and then some spoken word stuff in between, and then the entire middle 8 and back half of the song kind of just becomes this sort of meandering gothy jam, I guess. Yeah, it's not fantastic. Let's put it that way. I think Peter really does let the side down. But I think Joey has to be commended for at least attempting something wildly out of his wheelhouse and kind of, musically getting it pretty gets the nail on the head with the typo negative sound, I think. But
I think if there's any doubt that Joey Jordison's tracks in this are the most diverse, then that really puts it to rest, because you have this totally different, slow, gloomy, doomy finish.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it is okay as a finishing track, but it's a bit meandering.
Yeah.
It's not particularly interesting, but it is better than the worst tracks. It is better than the Rich Man.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's very like, okay, thanks for this. Goes on forever and ever.
Yeah.
So I give this one an extremely generous 2.
Okay.
But
I gave this a 2 as well.
But it could have been a 1 depending on how tired I am at any moment in time. But as I said, I did. But I did check would this affect Joey Jordison's overall rankings? Were I to give this a 1, and the answer was no. So I give it a 2.
Interesting.
Grading on a curve. But
okay.
My description of the scoring process, I think, is more interesting than that song actually was. But with that, we've made it to the end.
We have.
And
it is
time.
Indeed.
It is time for the scores on the doors.
Yeah. What are the scores, George? Right. Before we do the scores, do you want to hazard a guess on favourite tracks?
Oh, Jesus. It's really hard because I've got my scores in front of me. Yeah. And it's like a strip test. You're trying to read colours, but the colours are different. You're trying to read the word red, but it's written in blue, and my brain's going to malfunction here. Ooh, probably Independent, because you're such a Max Cavalera fan.
Unfortunately, it is not Independent. So, but yeah, good shout though. Before I reveal, I want to guess yours as In the Fire.
Yeah. I think
yes. My fave was Army of the Sun. I really like Army of the Sun. Right, okay, scores then. So let's go down the list then. So we'll start with Michael Ackerfeld and Josh Silver's song.
So they got a 3 from me and a 1 from you, right?
Yeah, that was a 1 from me. So yeah, unfortunately they didn't win the bracket there. Unfortunately.
Well, they were excluded. So maybe we should just talk about. Yeah, okay. So I had a tie for first place.
Interesting. I did not. I have a clear winner.
You're clear. Okay, so who's your clear winner?
I have Rob Flynn with 2.5.
He came bottom of my bracket.
Wow, we were.
So I had 1.75. My average Flynn was a 1.75. Let me just add a column to this spreadsheet here to make it easier to discuss this. Let's do this properly. Lewis, here my keyboard clicking away. Okay, so what was your Rob Flynn average?
My Rob Flynn average score was 2.5.
2.5, okay. Because, he had 4 songs, so I gave them a 2, a 1, a 1, and a 3.
Okay.
If I had liked Independent, it would have been a different story, but I did not, so it wasn't.
There we go. Okay, so who was your number ones?
My number 1 was a tie between Dino and Matt.
That makes sense.
They were both. This is very, very close.
Yeah.
I had Dino and Matt on 2.25 each.
Yep.
And I had Joey Jordison on 2.2.
So I also have Dino and Matt on 2.25 each, and I have Joey Jordison on 1.8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know why, but it wasn't working for me with Joey. Unfortunately, I just, because of that variety and because it felt like he was writing songs for specific artists, I guess I don't vibe with the artist style as much as I do the overall sort of like just make some fucking heavy metal songs. So yeah, I think that's unfortunately just where I sat with that. But this is not to discredit Joey's performance on this, because I do feel like he is probably the most interesting character over this entire record, because he definitely put in the work to try and craft songs based on a specific artist. And I think for the most part, like musically, he's pretty successful. I think vocally is where things kind of fall down for me on his songs. And the choice of artists, like it's that Life of Agony track always comes to mind.
Yeah, you really didn't like Tired and Lonely.
Yeah.
So and I thought it was okay, and I really liked No Way Out.
Yeah.
So that's fair enough. But this is where like I thought I was Enemy of the State a 1 or a 2, and if I give it a 1, this is the beauty of formula. I can tell you exactly like it only drops it to a straight up 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually affect the overall scores. So I don't feel too mean doing that. So I had Dino and Matt on 2.25 each. I had Rob Flynn on a 1.75 and Joey on a 2.2.
Cool.
So you had Rob Flynn as the winner, but I have just added a column and averaged the scores, which means that the official cast iron scores are that the winners are Dino and Matt on 2.25, Rob Flynn on 2.13, and Joey on 2, and Michael and Josh on 2, with a official album score of It's Fine. It's fine. It's a solid 2. It's a solid 2, and you know it's a solid number 2. What I was thinking about this is it's what makes the objective scoring fun and more of a competition is with an album like this you don't need to love everything.
Yeah,
you don't even need to love. You don't even need to love half of it.
Yeah,
and I think I charitably liked about half of it. You don't need that to enjoy the endeavor and have fun. It shows you what a diverse label Roadrunner actually is, and it actually shows you the depth of talent from the musicians.
For sure.
It's amazing that Matt Heafy has only released 1 album by this point. No wonder they get him to captain a team. Just listen to what he can do when he's given a few months in between releasing a seminal work of metalcore in Trivium's Ascendancy. The guy's clearly a phenomenal talent, and they must have seen this guy. This guy's excellent. He really knows what he's doing.
No, for sure.
This is as inconsistent as you would expect, but it's actually more fun than I thought it would be. And I think the back half is much stronger than the front half. I think the front half is a bit of a punish.
Yeah, totally.
And particularly because I didn't like The Enemy at all. If I had liked The Enemy more, Dino would have actually won it out.
Okay.
More fun than I thought it would be. But I think that first half is grueling. Absolutely grueling. And I think we're agreed that the low point is The Rich Man.
Definitely.
Everything bad about mid-2000s metal in one track.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's such an interesting record, right? Like I think that's why I really wanted to do it, because it's just such a weird like snapshot of what modern metal was like at the time, and like a good encapsulation of this label and what they've done, but also at the same time it's just a lot of fun. Like it's just a really diverse, like strange little thing to experience, because it kind of feels like a compilation, even though it's not. Like it's a brand new record, brand new songs, but they're all over the shop. It's just you don't know what you're going to get next, and I think that kind of makes it a very interesting record to explore. I'd like to ask, how did you approach your recommendations for further listening?
I picked 2 more Roadrunner albums that were released in 2005.
Okay, that's fair. And I was thinking of doing something similar, but I tried to specifically recommend stuff that sounds like the majority of this record. So I kind of picked some sort of like modern death metal, and I picked something that's a bit more groovy, a bit more nu metal-y. So
that's really good, because we're not going to overlap at all then.
There we go. So go on, Alan, fire away.
All right, so I got 2 records. These are both Roadrunner albums released in 2005. The first is Trivium's Ascendancy,
which is an incredible album.
Oh yeah, so we've never covered Trivium.
No, and I think we should.
Cast Iron. And I think Trivium are one of the most underrated bands in metal because they get a lot of shit.
Yeah,
I think they were the victims probably of a lot of Roadrunner's marketing and stuff. Ascendancy was hyped up to be the biggest album released in the world, and I think it's a really, really excellent record. Probably their strongest album for many, many years. It took them a long time before they were able to get up to the quality of songwriting to match Ascendancy. So that's my first rec, and then the fact that came out the same year as this is mind blowing.
Yeah.
I really couldn't believe how young Matt Heafy was. When he was involved with Roadrunner All Stars. My second recommendation is Opeth's Ghost Reveries.
Fair enough.
So this is very much an Opeth album that came out that year. Is it the best album? No. Is it the worst album? No. Is it very good and has a particularly good opening track, Ghost of Perdition? Yes, it is. I also have one bonus song, and I'm so glad that I picked this, because it was only in watching the documentary that I realised one of the band members is actually featured quite heavily on this album. So the bonus song recommendation is there's a track by Still Remains. They have an album called Of Love and Lunacy, which came out in 2005. There's a track on that called White Walls that is an absolute metalcore classic. And Jordan Whelan, who is the rhythm guitarist for Still Remains, he does rhythm guitar on 4 tracks on this album. So he's actually he's one of the most prolific musicians on Roadrunner All Stars, along with Christian Wolbers, who does, in fact, he does bass on the same 4 tracks that Jordan Whelan does rhythm. So that's all numbered. That's not going to help me. So he does the Dagger, Independent, perhaps all the Flynn tracks. Is it going to be all the Flynn tracks? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
he was obviously very readily available for his session, so that makes sense.
Yes, he is readily available. Yeah, I mean they're always been a pretty niche band, and I think when you hear Jordan Whelan talking in that album, he is a little bit starstruck. With working with Rob Flynn and stuff. So that's nice.
Absolutely.
So that's my bonus track recommendation. What about yourself?
Okay, so for modern death metal, I chose a Black Dahlia Murder album. I chose Miasma, which was kind of my introduction to that band. It's... Again, I love the Black Dahlia Murder. I think, it'd be interesting to see what happens to them now that Trevor has unfortunately passed. But, really, really good modern death metal album. Just a lot of fun. Super balls to the wall, over and done with very quickly, and it just gets all its ideas on the paper and doesn't waste your time. It reminded me of this quite a lot, especially the death metal stuff that creeps into stuff like, fucking Annihilation by the Hands of God and Dawn of a Golden Age. That sort of sound.
That's how those musicians planned out the songs.
Scrolling up the list quickly, remind yourself of the track list. And then the other album I picked was a bit of an underrated nu metal stomper from back in the day. I chose The War of Art by American Head Charge, which I think really encapsulates a lot of the sort of nu metal-y stuff on this album in particular. A really, really solid record. Just an album that everybody seemed to own, and we all knew the single, and it was just one of those things that was always on Kerrang TV for a long time, and then they just fell off the face of the earth. But
I remember downloading that album because my friend really wanted to listen to it and asked me if I could do a dodgy download and burn it to CD. I don't know if I ever listened to it though.
Okay.
So I will need to give that a blast at my next sweaty workout session.
But so those are my picks, because I feel like they're quite a good encapsulation of what modern metal was doing at this sort of time, and it just kind of gives you an idea of the sort of breadth of the sound on this record as well. So if you wanted to continue to scope out some artists that are in a similar vein, then American Head Charge, The War of Art, and Black Dahlia Murder, Miasma. Lovely stuff. We have recorded a brand new episode of Cast Iron after a year's break. That's amazing. Feels good.
Wait, the hiatus is over. And this is where we're so rusty that I need to look up my notes. So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, there's 2 ways to support the show. The first is to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Presumably they also have ratings. I don't know. The most important is to share Cast Iron with a friend or two and spread the love. And you can find all our previous episodes on your favorite podcast app. Caveat, if your favorite podcast app is YouTube, you will not find all the previous episodes. You can find some of them. And you can, of course, find them on our website, which is castironshow.co.uk. And where can people find you, Lewis?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Mastodon as @SonicYoda. And you can also now find Cast Iron Show on both of those social medias as well. Alan, where can people find you if you want to be found?
Look, after a long hiatus, and the gap is totally on me. I'm not going to go through the past year, but it wasn't great. It's better now.
Yeah.
You can find me on Split Screen, which is split-screen.net, and I've actually started blogging again. So one of my new habits for 2024 is I'm doing 100 words of proper blogging draft work every day.
Cool.
So I am actually writing again, and I've shared my favorite music of 2023 because we normally open the episode with what have you been listening to. It's like, well, how long have you got?
This is it, right? Yeah.
So I am blogging again. You can read all that on split-screen.net, and you can find a link to Split Screen from the Cast Iron website as well, because it's where we host the podcasts.
Lovely stuff. Alan, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to do this again. Thank you very much for joining me. I know it's very early for you, but it was nice
9
to get
a.m. now. That was,
back on the horse. So
and we'll not leave it so long until the next time.
For sure.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of a break, but this is one of the I can't remember if we even talked about it in the show, if it was the pre-show, about most podcasts only last one episode, or they last a few, and then they fizzle out. If you search for Cast Iron on Apple Podcast directory, there's quite a few random groups. Cast Iron Cookware, Cast Iron Theatre, I think is one of them, and most of these things, they last for a few episodes and they fade out, and that's the nice thing about Cast Iron for me, is that we can take a break and we can come back to it, and it ebbs and it flows, but it's always there, and it's something we can come back to, and we never lose the rapport, right?
No, for sure.
We'll certainly not leave it so long since the next time, but rest assured, we're not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things, isn't it? Sometimes real life gets in the way, and unfortunately, your hobbies have to take a bit of a backseat. And it's just, we would have said if this was over and done with, and the fact that we didn't means that we were always coming back, and we will continue to carry on as much as we can.